Hi guys, welcome to Bonnet and Blade. I'm shouting today because I haven't got mic on, but we're down at Sawney Bean's cave here in southwest Scotland. We're going to be telling you a story, or is it truth? We're going to delve deep into this and see if we can find fact or fiction. Come with us on an adventure.
On the wild coast of Ayrshire, a cave yawns in the cliffside. At the high tide it vanishes, swallowed by the sea, but when the tide recedes it opens like the mouth of some ancient beast. For over 2 decades, travellers disappeared along these roads. Entire families vanished without a trace. Horses were found wandering without riders, wagons abandoned, yet no one knew why. Their jewels were stolen, and there was no trace. The truth would one day be discovered, and it was worse than any nightmare. A hidden clan of nearly 50 people raised in darkness who lived by robbery and by cannibalism. This is no ghost story. This is the history of the tale of Sawney Bean, the most feared man in Scotland, and leader of a family of killers. To understand how Sawney Bean's story unfolded, we must first step back to Scotland in the late 1500s. This was a kingdom under strain. King James VI sat on the throne, a young king obsessed with rooting out witchcraft and rebellion. The borders between Scotland and England were fraught with razing and bloodshed. Law was harsh, justice was public and brutal. Witch trials filled the courts. Torture devices, executions and burnings were all part of everyday life. It was a time when fear and superstition ruled the land. For the ordinary people, life was bleak. Many were tenant farmers scratching a living from the unforgiving soil. A bad harvest could mean starvation. The poor had few choices. Begging, stealing were often the only paths left. It was in this world of superstition and hardship that the man who became Sawney Bean first emerged. His real name was said to be Alexander Bean, born in East Lothian to a ditch digger. By all accounts, Sawney had no taste for honest work. He was idle, violent and quick to anger, a real layabout. As a young man, he fell under the sway of a woman named Agnes Douglas. She had a dark reputation. She was branded a witch by the locals. Together, they rejected society and chose instead to live by theft and murder. The couple wandered west, far from their home, until they came to Ayrshire, its rugged coastline. There they discovered Benane Cave, a vast half-mile tunnel stretching deep into the cliffs. At high tide, the entrance was concealed by the sea, and at low tide, it became their refuge. This cave was also very difficult to access from anywhere else but the sea. Inside the cave, it was dark and damp, but hidden. To most, it was uninhabitable. To Sawney and Agnes, it was their fortress. A place where no sheriff, no king's men, no villagers would dare to look. It was their safety net, their palace. In that cave, a family began. Sawney and Agnes had children, many children, 14 in total. And when there were no other companions, incest produced grandchildren. Over time, their clan grew to nearly 50 souls, all born and raised within the caves. Black walls. They knew no farming, no trade, no church, no neighbours. They were taught only one thing: to kill in order to survive. By night, they emerged, hidden in the gorse and in the bracken. They watched the roads. They chose to isolate travellers, couples, families returning from markets or fairs. Their attacks were swift and merciless. Victims were dragged back to the cave. There they were butchered. Flesh was cut from the bone, salted and preserved. What they could not eat, immediately they pickled in barrels. Limbs were hung from hooks like meat in a slaughterhouse. Locals grew fearful. They whispered of the disappearances. Horses arrived home without their riders. Carts were abandoned. But no one suspected a clan of outlaws hiding beneath the cliffs. Some blamed sea storms. Others accused the innkeepers of highwaymen. Some even had the innkeepers killed for this, under suspicion. For nearly 25 years, the Bean clan thrived in secrecy. Scotland was haunted by a terror it could not name. The Beans might have gone on indefinitely, but fate intervened. One night, the clan ambushed a couple returning from a nearby fair. The woman was struck down instantly, but the husband, armed with a sword, fought back ferociously. He was a well-known swordsman and was able to battle on. His cries carried across the night. By sheer chance, a group of travellers came riding from the fair. Hearing the struggle, they rushed to the scene. The Beans scattered into the darkness. For the first time in decades, a victim had survived. The Beans had a rule that no victims could survive. They were not a stupid family by any manner of means. They used to leave parts of the bodies, sometimes to wash up on the beach far afield. This would give the indication that an accident had happened, or that some other beast had got them. And this night, word spread quickly. The survivors rode straight to the local magistrate, who carried the news to Edinburgh. The disappearances could no longer be ignored. King James VI himself ordered action. He assembled a force of 400 men, soldiers, trackers, even bloodhounds. Together they marched west into Ayrshire, determined to uncover the truth. The Bean clan was marched to Edinburgh. No trial was held. Their guilt was plain for all to see. Not only that, these were not human. They couldn't be human. Everyone thought that they must be animals or something from the demons, because no human could do this to another. The sentence was swift and brutal. The men had their hands and their feet cut off and were left to bleed to death. The women and children were burned alive before the crowds. Sawney himself was said to have shouted a curse as he died. "It isn't over! It will never be over!" With that, the most feared family in Scotland was extinguished. His presence is still felt down at Benane Cave. As you arrive at the cave, the entrance is cold, it's bleak, and there's a self-feeling that someone is watching you, someone is there. It takes a lot of effort to get down there, but when you are, you know you're not alone. Is this a myth? Is this a story that was brought around to make the English look superior to the Scots? Many people think that this was brought about during the Jacobite times to try and make the Scots look like they were evil, horrible people, demonising them, making them look like cannibals. I don't know that that's necessarily true. Why do I not think that's true? Because 100 years after the first announcement of this happening was the first written evidence in Carlisle. In Carlisle, there was penny dreadfuls written all about the story of Sawney Bean, only 100 years after it had happened. Penny dreadfuls were renowned for having stories, myths, legends, but they never went into the detail, like the father being a ditch layer. They didn't have that level of detail. They may have said that they came from the area near Edinburgh, but they wouldn't say Lothian. They wouldn't have Agnes known as Black Agnes. They wouldn't have given it so much detail, in my opinion. So in my opinion, I feel there's too much detail to this story. There's too much reality to this story. If you go to this scene where this has happened, which we have, you can see where the stagecoaches would have travelled from Ayr to Stranraer. On that road, this is the perfect location for cannibalism to have happened if it was ever going to happen. So the storyteller must have researched thoroughly to be able to come up with a feasible plan and plot. And in those days, did they? Did they research it to make it so realistic? It's almost like searching out a film set and making it believable to the humans that are seeing it. But they didn't need to see it because it was in a penny dreadful. But now we go back and look at it now, it still fits perfectly. And for that reason, and that reason alone, I think this happened. Why is it not documented then? Many people will say. Well, there's an element of embarrassment for a start. Why would they document something that is so embarrassing to the country? That's the first and foremost. But also, the king and the king's men broke the law. They delivered a trial of execution and torture without trial. And to the best of my knowledge, that is not the done thing. And nobody wants to publicise that they would do that. So they're not going to keep records to say, by the way guys, we broke the law. We did a trial without any, we did an execution without any trial, without any need for evidence. We just executed them because we thought they were animals. Nobody is going to do that, and that's why it's not there. But the figures of 400 men, the figures, the information about bloodhounds, this is all exactly how it would have been done back in the day. So the research, the information, and the fact that this story is brought to minds in many places and is so believable, I believe it to be true. To this day, many pubs are known as the Sawney Bean. There's a restaurant in Canada known as Sawney Bean. This is all after the cannibal. Why are they there? Because of a myth? I don't think so. Because of a horrible, horrible clan family that were beasts, that were pushed so far to the fringes of humanity, they turned evil. They had no choice but to turn evil. The worry here is that, is history going to repeat itself? Are we going to find that people are pushed so far out of humanity that they push back? That's something that we should learn from history. But on my opinion, and my opinion as a doctor of history, there seems to be very much good documented evidence in the way of the story, the location, and the facts. But never can we turn around and say that this is a definite, this happened. No one can, because of the lack of written evidence. But my opinion is that no one would want to write the written evidence as it happened there and then. And yes, it may have grown arms and legs, pardon the pun. But the reason that it will have grown arms and legs is because it was told 100 years later. But the story that was told that 100 years later is still exactly the same story that's told today. It's not embellished, it's not changed, but it has inspired movies like The Hills Have Got Eyes. That was inspired off the Sawney Bean clan because it's such a powerful, powerful story, whether it's true or not true. That is for you to make your own mind up. But myself and my family felt something when we've researched this video. We've been down there, and trust me, it's not an easy place to get to. It's extremely hard to get to. I was right on my limits getting down there, but I could so easily see a clan of almost feral humans scrambling up this hillside in darkness to be able to seize their dinner and their prizes. We jumped out our skin whilst we were down filming in the cave because we hadn't realised that a local artist had made a bust and positioned this bust inside deep inside the cave, and it's deep. You have to get your hands and knees to crawl up this tunnel. And we then brought filming lights with us down.
Hi guys, that brings us to the end of the story of Sawney Bean. But don't forget, like, subscribe, send us a message and let us know what you think. We are here to make videos for you and hopefully bring history alive and hopefully some of this beautiful Scottish scenery. So like and subscribe, keep in contact, and we'll bring more exciting videos for you. See you in the next one. From me, Grant, and cameraman Jess, we'll see you in the next one.